Hello, everybody. Dumelang. Welcome all to another intentional moment where we're going to spend time together, reflecting, thinking out loud, just tuning into ourselves and creating space for self and other. Wherever you are joining me from, thank you for joining. I really enjoy engaging with you guys. Thank you for those of you who have subscribed, and to you guys who are still one foot in, one foot out. Tune into this episode, see how you feel. Let's see where we go with it. Today, we are going to speak about boundaries. This has become a very popular topic. Why? Because we are coming to realize that many of us either don't have boundaries, or the boundaries we have, are they working for us? So I want us to think about many things. A lot of people have come to me asking me how to set up boundaries, and I feel like it's such an extensive conversation that is very layered, that is very individual. As always, I'll say remain curious, remain non-judgmental. We can't create space to reflect and think without safety. There's reasons why most people struggle to set boundaries, but it's also something that many of us can learn, no matter at which point of life you are, no matter your age or your life experiences. Of course, what we've been through and what we are living through affects how difficult or challenging that will be, or how long it will take for us, but it's something that we all can learn. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are basically the limits that you set between you and other people. It is where you begin and where they end. It is knowing what's yours and what's not. So what this can look like day to day is setting limits around how much time you spend with somebody, how much access they have to you, your time. Many people take their time for granted. In conversations that I have with them, a lot of us take our time for granted. We don't respect it, we don't value it, and so then people have access to do with our time what they feel. What it can also look like to put up a boundary is you using your agency to decide how people behave around you. So what kinds of behaviors are you going to tolerate in your presence? When somebody gets to be with Hopelang, what is it that she's able to sit with or around, hear, experience, laugh about, not laugh about, just allow myself to be physically exposed to, mentally exposed to, spiritually exposed to. There's all sorts of exposure. So you get to decide what you will tolerate from others. It can also look like, what are we willing to do for others without sacrificing ourselves? We live in a relational world. What that means is no man is an island. You live with people. We weren't born to live alone. So setting boundaries isn't necessarily becoming this strict person or this very rigid human being that has no flexibility, that always says no and that's a full sentence. No, it's saying, I don't leave myself behind. A lot of us leave ourselves behind when we don't have boundaries, or we are very lax with our boundaries. The cliches of no man's an island, or the cliche of your cup, fill your cup first, that comes from somewhere. That comes from realizing, in a room full of people, if the cup is empty, literally not everybody is going to be quenched. And if that cup belongs to you, and the aim or the need is thirst, and I give everybody my cup, which is already half or quarter filled, I'm going to then suffer with thirst. I'm going to be dehydrated. I'm going to be malnourished in that area. So it's about, holding yourself in mind as well as others. This is not about being selfish, it's about self-care. A lot of people use those words interchangeably, and a lot of people who don't know how to set boundaries feel guilty about setting boundaries, will often call themselves selfish. And I just want you to think about, are you that kind of person? And are you the kind of person that needs to reframe the word selfish to self-care? Yes, some people can be non-considerate to others and selfish, but oftentimes I feel that most people without boundaries aren't selfish and are just self-sacrificing. So boundaries aren't only for other people. Some people frame it that way in their mind and their thoughts, that it's to keep others out, and maybe that's when, you know, it gets a bit punitive. It's not only to keep people out, it's also to protect you. So if you take anything from this conversation today, is you are always in the conversation, you are always in the picture. Yes, it's to keep, you know, that out, but it's also to keep this in, whatever I need that needs protecting. You are valuable, that's why you're worth protecting. You have worth, you have things to offer, you are worthy of health, peace of mind, you are a lovely person, and not everybody deserves access to that. Not everybody is responsible with the good parts of you. Not everybody knows what to do with goodness, and if you just give it to anybody, you're going to struggle. You're going to be tired, you're going to be depleted, you're going to have emotional burnout, you're going to feel numb. It's going to come out in all sorts of unhealthy ways. You're going to be a person that you probably don't like being, okay? And so never leave you out of the picture. Before you can even put up any boundaries, you have to have a relationship with self. You have to construct a relationship with self. Who are you before you can know what you are protecting? How can you protect something if you don't even know who you are, right? What am I saying no to? What are my values? What do I enjoy and not enjoy? So you have to have a relationship with self. This is now episode 5 and almost in every episode, one of the first steps to, you know, resolving something, attending to something, is retreat, moments alone, relationship with self. And as much as it can, you know, we can roll eyes to, oh, there she goes again, it's true. Like, how are you ever gonna begin to be anything for anybody else if you can't even be that for yourself? It's just not realistic. Yet we live in societies where we function that way. Give, but actually that can be very damaging, because what are we giving exactly? Have we even evaluated what we are sharing of ourselves and what we are imprinting on others? So parents tend to be very guilty. I'm a parent, not a perfect parent. I'm not being judgmental. I'm very guilty of this. I'm still learning, will forever be learning. So know that this comes from a good place. We are so some of us can be so guilty of, I want to give my child, but we live in such contradiction that you'll say to your child, take care of yourself. Set the boundary of saying no to your friends. You're tired, or do this, but we're not doing it. So actually we think we're giving other people goodness, but we're not. We're teaching them. People like kids, but human beings, we don't do as we are told. We do as we witness and see. So I think there's something about just building a relationship with yourself. This is why this is exhausting. This is why we avoid these things, because it takes a lot of energy, but nothing is going to shift unless we do and unless we put in the work. So once you've decided and constructed who you are, and you know, genuinely some people will say, yeah, hopelang easier said than done, but I don't know who I am. Okay, let's use our imagination. I believe we can always start from somewhere. Who is the person that you admire most? Or 2 3 people that you really really admire. You look at them and and feel like, wow, he or she are living such a wonderful life, or I love how they carry themselves, or I admire this quality about them, or if I could, I would. That person, right? And I'm not promoting idealizing people, but if you don't know who you are, let's first use imagination and then help you construct a sense of self. What do you like about that person? What attracts you to that person or their character? Is it that you feel that they have integrity, self-respect? Is it that you feel that they're always energized, or that they are a friendly person? What does it take to have those qualities? Most often is boundaries. I am not going to be a kind person if I'm tired. I'm going to be irritable. I'm going to be very short. I am not going to be present. I am not going to have integrity if I don't have boundaries, because it means I say yes to everything. I don't have limits, right? So imagine that person, and perhaps that's a starting point to say, those are characteristics that I'd like to have. That is probably the starting point of the area that you need to start building boundaries in. Okay, so once you construct the relationship with yourself, or the idea of your future self, or who you would like to be, then you will know what you would like to protect, need to protect. What are you hearing people around you often say about you? Okay, last week we spoke about being intentional about putting ourselves in silent moments. What gets loud? What is also loud in the feedback you're getting? What are people constantly saying about you? What kind of, oh my gosh, you are so generous. Am I giving too much? Do I have anything left for myself? So that's also a starting point to give you clues into, do I need to tighten up my boundaries here? Do I need to, install a fence here? Am I not giving anything, right? So once we know what we're protecting, right? So are you protecting your integrity? Are you protecting your self-esteem, your need for peace of mind, your desire or leaning towards happiness and joy that is healthy? Then you have something tangible to hold on to, and you can start building steps to what that looks like. Building self-esteem looks like, well, last week I spoke about what are you ingesting? What does your social media feed look like? People, places, and things. What are you normalizing? What are you feeding your brain and your body the whole time? Is it building your self-esteem, or do you need to cut things off? Do you need to minimize? Okay, are some relationships toxic and maybe need a pause or limited time? So most times, most of us struggle to put up boundaries because we live in fear of loss. We often fear that we're going to lose those people, places, and things. Most common thing that I hear is that I don't want to lose that person. And because we're relational beings and we are wired to be, connected to each other, we mainly, most people mainly will say, I'm scared to lose a relationship, a person. And I want us to remain curious about what has made us deem that relationship or person important. What are you idolizing about that person that is making it so worthwhile to self-sacrifice, to feel so empty and depleted inside? Because that's what not setting boundaries ultimately makes us feel in the long run. You become resentful, you become angry, you become bitter. What is it on a scale that outweighs, what is it about that person, that relationship, that outweighs the fact that I don't like being this kind of person or this version of me? And I want us to think about, okay, as a result of self-sacrificing ourselves or leaving ourselves behind, what do we lose in the process? What are we losing when we're not setting up certain boundaries? What, in the things that we recognize we're losing, are those things important? Is your self-esteem important to you? Is your peace of mind important to you? Is, if we had to put them on a scale of importance, which one outweighs the other? Because sometimes we say that things are important to us, but when we journey, we recognize that they're not. There's a difference between something being important to us and not knowing how to prioritize it. Meaning, like many people, yeah, my self-esteem is important to me, I just don't know how to make it a priority. I don't have the skills or the tools. I didn't grow up in an environment that taught me. That's a different conversation versus realizing that no, actually, I don't care about my self-esteem. I don't care about my peace of mind. I don't want peace of mind. Peace of mind, like last week's conversation, makes me anxious. And even that you don't deem important, no judgment, just curiosity. Why? Ask yourself, why don't I deem this thing important? Should I be wanting this thing to be important? Is it something that sounds important? Just ask yourself questions, And if something like peace of mind is important to you or to us, but we've never been taught how to protect it, right? Or have the skill. Like I said in the beginning, there's room to learn. So part of the questions of why, or, following the why is, do I want to learn this thing? Do I want to? So when we put up boundaries, I hear a lot of people saying things like, oh no, but then my life will be boring. I heard that this week. My life will be boring. And will it be boring? Is it boring or is it healthy? Because we associate chaos, we associate a lot of toxic things as, or we are addicted to thrill. We are addicted to, we don't know what to do with ourselves when things are healthy. We don't know how to eat a salad with salmon in it. We know how to eat the unhealthy things every other day, and then we know how to take Gaviscon for heartburn. But if you're doing that for a very long time, what's going to happen later on? You're going to struggle with heart palpitations. You're going to struggle with heart conditions. So, I think when I say remain curious, you'll be surprised the things that come out of our mouths that occupy our minds the whole time. Like, oh, this is so boring. Oh, but then I'm alone. Yeah. Maybe for a moment you'll be alone. Maybe for a moment you'll lose friends. But are those the kinds of friendships that you want to have in your life? Do you want to learn how to make room and space for healthy relational experiences? I can't decide that for you. We're just thinking out loud together. So let's just remain curious, and it's okay to start from or come from a point where that boundary isn't important or necessary for you at this point. But can it be at some point? Can you see it being something necessary at some point? Because that at least opens up the door to some willingness to learn. Most of us, or some of us, can recognize that something isn't the best case scenario for us and still consciously decide to stay in that cycle. So it also takes a level of readiness. It takes a level of pacing yourself. Just having this conversation today is already a start. You're pacing yourself. You're teaching your mind to think about something, you know, that if you're at this point of this conversation, clearly there's something there. You know, we are willing to live with things that we've weighed against toxic norms, and they outweigh it. And I think the difficult challenge in society is that very few human beings themselves are healthy enough to help you set the boundary. And so the challenge is going to be that you are going to need to set that boundary. You are probably going to need to initiate that. Some people are fortunate. They have, you know, people who've done enough work on themselves to say, hey, I realize that, you know, this is what's happening for you, or this is how I experience you, and they are able to deliver that to us in a, you know, kind, loving, thoughtful way. Most people, we are all coming to discover ourselves. So I'm probably not going to have the tools to help you recognize it for you, or have the capacity to help you through, not help you through that journey, but to even, like, you know, bring it to your attention, because I am probably functioning from a place of not knowing myself. So, you know, it's not that we are not surrounded by healthy human beings, but just from experience and what I'm observing, there's very few people who themselves are operating from healthy places. We see a lot of people operating from very wounded places, and so it takes us to be the ones that are going to put up that boundary. One of the ways to learn, like I said, is to lean into it. It's such a, you know, this is also a buzz phrase, lean into this, we all use it, but you know, it's such a painful thing to do, isn't it? To lean into something. It's like, of course there's a wound. It's me saying, take off the band-aid and lean into the septic wound, and sit with it and feel how it's itching, and recognize that you didn't clean it properly. And now it's going to take a lot of tolerance, of pain, of whatever the wound requires to go through, to get to a point where you say no to someone, they throw a tantrum, and many adults throw tantrums, and it's not that you don't care, but you don't internalize it. It's like it goes in, and then it goes up, it gets processed, and it lands where it needs to land, and it filters, and you're still able to function. It takes a lot. It really takes a lot. Like, I don't have these conversations without empathizing with what it takes for people to do what I'm asking them to do, or asking us to do. I also have to learn these things. But one of the ways is, yes, lean into it. And how you lean into it is always ask yourself, what is my worst case scenario with this boundary? Because it's the fear of loss, right? Perhaps. But what else is the worst case scenario? We always have a worst case scenario in our minds that we feel that we can't live with, or we can't survive. We imagine we can't survive. And imagining or talking ourselves through our worst case scenario helps us get to the crux of why it is hard to set the boundary, and it helps us get to the crux of our biggest fear. Fear is real. It cripples us, but it also doesn't have to. You know, we live in a world where you're witnessing people overcoming their fears all the time, and it's not easy, but you do it anyway. The first episode of this podcast, I spoke about how it took me 5 years to finally overcome the fear of imposter syndrome, and, you know, viewing myself as a creative, or feeling like I have something important to say. So fear is real, but it doesn't have to stay that way, you know. So now let's assess what this fear tells us about us. So we realize, of course, we're fearing something, what that something is, what the loss is. And I want us to ask ourselves these questions. What is it telling us that we feel we are not worthy of? Is it telling us that we feel we're not worthy of respect? Is it telling us that we feel we are not worthy of love and kindness? Is it telling us that we are feeling malnourished for attention and affection and connection? What is this fear? What is this fear of losing this relationship? So I'm going to stick with relationships because it tends to be the most common, thing that people fear losing about when thinking of setting a boundary. What about losing this person reveals something about you? If it is a fear of losing attention, connection, and affection, well, earlier we spoke about a relationship with self. That is where we then, remove the plaster and say, washing the wound can be the equivalent of spending time with myself and giving myself the kind of attention that I want others to give me. Putting on medicine to assist healing this wound can be starting to do things that makes me feel connected with myself. Meditating, breath work, connecting with my body, having conversations with myself, journaling, taking myself out on solo dates, feeling awkward on that solo date, but then feeling, connected and loved, writing yourself love sticky notes every day. So, the opposite of that looks like when we don't put up these boundaries, when we don't assess why we don't put up boundaries, we end up believing lies about ourselves. We end up believing things about ourselves that aren't true, and we end up embodying those lies because they become our truth. Ultimately, if you do something over and over, it becomes true. You start to believe that I am not worthy of affection and connection that is healthy. I am not worthy of respect. And you start to embody putting yourself in spaces surrounded by people and things that won't respect you. And then you give so much and so much, and then you realize that, oh my gosh, I am now at a point where I don't like myself. I don't even like you. I feel resentful. And you know what happens when we don't put up boundaries? The world and people directly and indirectly say, who asked you to? Who asked you to give so much of yourself? Who asked you to say yes? Who asked you to leave the door open? And that is what often hits us. That's what impacts us and imprints on us and hurts our feelings, or leaves a dent. That the world is set up in a way that's going to ask you, who asked you to self-sacrifice? And you're going to start feeling taken advantage of. But that's not really the case. You have so much agency. You just need to take the first step of using it to shift. So look at it this way, right? Think of a house, and that house is obviously in a particular space, a yard. This house and this yard doesn't have a fence or a wall or a gate. It's free access for everyone. There's no pets, no dogs, nothing roaming around outside to keep anything out. The door to this house is either always unlocked, there is no door, or the lock is or the key is broken. The door is wide open, and everybody in the community who needs, wants something, is bored, has time, is able to enter this house and take something from it. This house has a lot of valuable and sentimental things and items, including the owners. And when people feel like, okay, I need to go get some groceries, they come to this house, they take it. When they feel like, hey, there's an antique something there, I go and they take it. Next thing you know, the house is empty because all the sentimental things have been taken. Your family photos, your memories, they have access to experiences from childhood all the way to today. They have items from your mom and your dad. They have been able to even engage with your cousins, and they've taken them out. They're out for lunch. They have access. And one day you find yourself in this home or in this house, and it just feels empty, because it is. And it no longer feels like a home. At some point it did feel like a home, but now it doesn't feel like a home. You are that house, okay? And I want you to imagine that from this conversation and this reflection together, the house is still standing. If you haven't let them take the whole house as well, I'm joking. I'm joking. And if you have, one thing you can do is build another house, right? But let's imagine the house is standing. It's just not in the best condition, or in the condition it originally was in. And you say, from today, I am going to start sourcing materials to build a fence or a wall, whatever you desire your house to look like. And you're going to erect that fence. And then you're going to take time to rest, because your yard is big and it took a lot, and you had to do a lot of laying of foundation for that wall, or that fence to stand. And then after some time, you're going to install a gate, an electric gate. Or do you want one with a lock, a manual lock, where you walk out and open for somebody? And I want you to imagine that you have a dog sometime, there you have a pet. Imagine the kind of dog you want. He's your friend or she's your friend, but they're very protective of you. They love you because you love them. You take care of each other. And this house now has a door that functions. It opens, it closes, it has a lock. It sometimes, opens only when you open it, right? Because it's not broken. It's not being flipped open by the wind, because the house is no longer maintained and taken care of. And you take a break again, because to get all of those things takes a lot of energy and effort. And then after some time, I want you to imagine yourself getting your stuff back, right? Some stuff you won't get back. Some things aren't replaceable, but you get something back, and some things are new to you. You get self-respect, you've never had it. You get peace of mind, you've never had it. You are purchasing for yourself. No is a full sentence and it's valid the first time. You've never had that. Imagine your house. You're decking it out, boy. You're decking it out. The house of your dreams. That is you. Okay. It's not perfect. It still has that little crack in the wall, but we'll paint over it, but you can still see that something happened there. If you've ever patched the wall in your house, then you can see. And some things you don't want to fix. They there's a reminder to hold you accountable that it's okay. I went through some things. This house went through some things. That's what makes it valuable. I like it. That's what makes it home. And then it starts to feel warm again. It starts to, when you come back and you enter the home, it starts to feel like a place that you can breathe and relax and get some sort of reprieve in. That's you. That's the process I'm talking about. Most of us have such a negative relationship to boundaries because we've been taught that it's bad. It's bad to say no. It's bad to, I used to think it's only for women. I think it looks different for women and men. How society tells us that it's bad to say no. But on a human level, male or female, a lot of people have a negative connotation to the word boundaries. It means, I've heard people say it means I am a bad person, it means I'm unkind, it means that I'm selfish, like I said earlier. No. What if it means that you care for yourself, that you self, it's self-care, it's not selfish. Selfish means that you're completely inconsiderate of other people. It sounds to me that the kind of person I'm sort of trying to engage with does think of people, but way too much. On a spectrum, they're on the extreme side, and I just need them to slowly get themselves somewhere healthy in between and healthy middle. And oftentimes places that feel warm and feel like a home have gone through a lot. And I want you to know that that house is still a home. But you then consistently have to make it a home. What makes a home? If you just think of your ideal space of a home, it's consistency, it's attention, it's cleaning, it's looking behind the crevices. You're like, oh, okay, I need to clean there, moving this couch. What makes a home? Attention, time. So I want you to offer yourself those qualities. A lot of us feel damaged because of the experiences, the scars, and the crevice on the wall that we plastered, but we can see that something there happened. No, you're not. You're just human. You're just a human being who had a human experience or human experiences. And nobody can tell you when you can change or can't change. Nothing is permanent. You can start right now to say, this is not my boundary. I would rather we learn how to maneuver guilt than have no boundaries. I would rather we learn what to do with guilt than to feel depleted and operate from places of resentment and bitterness, because we become dangerous when we operate from those spaces. We become vile. We struggle to look ourselves in the mirror because we don't like ourselves. We have agency. You can shift it. So let's all go think about it. Where am I pouring a lot into? Where is most of my energy going? And then just remain curious and non-judgmental and say, well, okay, I noticed that I pour a lot here. How is it feeling for me? Do I feel energized? Do I feel like I get my energy back when I have poured energy into that? Does it feel reciprocal? Or do I feel drained? The answers you get from those questions are your starting point of the person who would say to me, I don't know where to start instilling boundaries. Ask those questions. See what you say to yourself. Start there. I am going to leave it there for today. I don't want to lecture us because I know how difficult this topic is. And I am going to... You know what I just noticed? I was thinking in the background, I'm dressed so serious. Today I'm dressed so serious. Maybe, what does that say to me? Let me think about it, about what I associate boundaries with. Anyway, let me get serious. Let me think out loud with you. Okay. Where would I like to set healthy boundaries? I noticed that there are certain people I've noticed that there are certain people that I have to extensively prep myself to talk to or be around. And I'm going to remain curious about what that is for me. And I'm going to be curious about whether there are boundaries I need to set there and what those are for myself. But I am first going to start with me. I'm going to tune into what is it? What is that deep sigh about those people, places, and things? And what accountability I need to take. Okay, I'll see you again soon. I'm looking forward to hearing what your internal process is, if you feel the need to share. Otherwise, see you soon.